Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays! You're in for a nice, warm, cozy episode of the Ultimate Schmodown Show. I'm Colin, of course. Today, Bernard the Elf bringing you bunches of presents in the world of the Schmodown. But joining me are two indispensable members of this crew. All the way from across the pond. It's my co-host on We Have the High Ground, the only Star Wars show you should be listening to. It's Boggs. How's it going, bud?
Hello there. So we are here. Christmas Day. We are live. Just playing. We're not. But yeah, this is it's the show goes on. And also obviously not everyone as well. Bear in mind, not everyone can get to family members. Some people need entertainment. Some people don't celebrate Christmas, of course. So we keep going. It's a good match to talk about, and pleasure to do it with you boys.
And closer than he usually is. I love it. I feel like I'm closer. I'm closer to him than I've ever been right now. It's John Barr. How's it going, bud?
It's going all right. Your basement has been nice and warm. I really appreciate it. You've been leaving out like just enough kind of like scraps at the top of the stairs for me to kind of run up, grab and get. So that's been lovely. I'm very excited to again, obviously we're not recording this, or we're not doing it live on Christmas, because even Santa Claus himself, he ain't working that day. He's not doing that at all. So we're happy that we could do a little bit of our own Christmas Eve preparation as we're wrapping up and delivering our discussion of a couple different topics, including a match that would have dropped just today and some awards, some ultra special gifts that are going to be awarded at the start of next year.
And speaking of a match that you hopefully have watched if you're watching this, we're going to be talking about Chris Jericho versus Brittany Young, one of the show matches of Spectacular 5, and was probably in the top 3 of most probably closest contests of the day in terms of just spatting back and forth. These two were very enjoyable to watch. I've always been hesitant when it comes to the stars, right? When it comes to the stars coming into the Schmodown, and I mean like people who have been paid to be on television more than more than a handful of times. These people are career actors and performers. I've always felt that Jericho has that high floor but a low ceiling where he could just check out at some point, right? Like he could just kind of just not care or whatever, but he seems to have like worked that into his persona, and it really plays well here. John, what were your initial thoughts watching this match? I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're at that point in the Schmodown where even folks who have been main staples but aren't necessarily able to keep up with that intensity and the competitive nature that has really blossomed this season specifically, folks like Josh McCouga and Ken Knapsack, who are no longer with the show because they're just like, nah, this is not really the environment I want to be in right now. And hey, all power to them. Absolutely. Like if you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. That's very okay. But Chris Jericho and Brittany Young are here because not only are they two celebrities, but they are feeling it, partially because they are both in the world of pro wrestling, one as an actor and one as a wrestler. But they have that competitive drive, and they also just like movies. So I knew that we were definitely going to get a fun, enjoyable match. We've seen these personalities before, and they were a delight. So I was hoping that we would get another delight, and it wasn't going to be like too lopsided. And it most certainly was not. It was a good, fun match. Obviously not as high scoring as some of the other ones, but a fun one nonetheless. A nice little intermission, let's say, between belts on belts on belts.
Yeah, I always like these little pieces of ginger that the Schmodown likes to throw in there from time to time. A little switch the palate up, whatever. Boggs, was this good enough? I know these show matches sometimes this year, they've kind of been a bit of a letdown besides Kevin Smith and Jericho. We've had some letdowns in some live events. I'm sure you were satisfied. We were watching this together live at one point, and this it seemed like we were having a pretty good time with it. It was just a nice time.
Yeah, definitely. The end of this, my thought was you can trust Jericho to turn up and to turn on the charm, the entertainment. Jericho and Roxy as well. I think they're a good team up. And also, I was looking forward to Kaiser and how he was going to do it. Obviously, he was on the show a couple of weeks before Spectacular Ed. So I was super, happy for him. We did say to him, this is like a once in a lifetime, opportunity potentially to go on screen one-on-one with Jericho is definitely something that you can't kind of shy away from. And I thought he done great. And of course, Brittany Young as well. I thought she done great. So yeah, especially after the Star Wars match was a little lopsided. It kind of going into the teams match, this was like a nice kind of swing for the in momentum to kind of get you hyped for that match. So yeah, I was definitely happy overall, and I was excited going in. But yeah, it's a good match.
For sure. So Johnny, my sweet boy, we got 8 questions in round 1. Let's break them down.
How often do you get called Johnny, by the way? That's the first time I think anyone said it.
Yeah, very rarely, if ever.
I got you. Now you're Johnny, my Johnny Bravo.
Listen, it's always fun to get an extra little nickname peppered in there, just because so many people just kind of call me John Barr, which is delightful. They just kind of go the full first name, last name. Also, just a lot of Paul Shears. I get a lot of 2-syllable comparison nicknames. So, hey, I'll take Johnny. That fits the pattern. 8 questions, and we got a full, even competitor versus competitor coming out of it, albeit at 6-6, not a 8-8 as a lot of these matches kind of were. It was no perfect rounds, but very competitive match all the same. Chris Jericho, he missed 2 questions. He missed the Silver Linings Playbook, I believe, Robert De Niro question. But then he also missed Shutter Island. That was when he wrote Island, which is a very different film starring Ewan McGregor.
Extremely different film.
A little different. Just a little different. Meanwhile, Brittany Young, she missed the Blade Runner Replicants question and the Rodney Dangerfield question, which I think betrayed something that would be a little bit of a theme, I would kind of argue, where Brittany, some of those kind of more classic questions did not necessarily play to her strengths, did not play to her knowledge base, whereas Chris Jericho, he just kind of had some of those cultural blind spots, sort of the more modern films, I guess, in a way. I mean, that's more kind of considering the questions he misses in round 2, though. But yeah, again, like both these folks, they have a solid base of knowledge. Because again, 6 out of 8 questions, that's not bad, especially because for both of them, it's only their second regulation match. Obviously, third for Brittany because she was part of the Glow. God, what's it called?
Exhibition.
Exhibition, that's the word. But yeah, good first round, Colin.
6-6, Boggs. Can't really ask for much more. I mean, coming out swinging, no pun intended. I mean, they got down to business. One couldn't really find momentum. I kind of like to shift it back and forth, from one to the other. And, these kind of really what you want coming out of round 1 is not knowing what's going to happen. Yeah,
definitely. So my overall just thought of that round was like what you said there, John. Like it seemed like the questions kind of more 70s, 80s, early 90s Jericho seemed stronger, and the kind of more recent newer releases Brittany Young seems stronger. Obviously, that's quite a general thing to think, but yeah, that was the kind of overall flavor I got from it. So yeah, I'm glad it was 6-6 going in, and I think it would all come down to the wheel round, which it seemed like it did.
Yeah, and then Jericho getting to spin first. It's been the higher ranked competitor, sure. And spinning first with famous actors and actresses. Boy, I think he wishes that he stuck with that one because dramas came around, and John, it just seems that drama, as it usually does, ensued.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's always kind of a question of when you got those broad categories, when you just got that kind of like broad name, you don't necessarily know what you're going to get. For example, I think you could make a very good argument that Big Eyes question counted as a famous actors and actresses question as well. So it's kind of that thing where it's like, all right, maybe it's not so much, an issue of the category. Maybe it's just an issue of just what you get when you land on one of those categories. Jericho did only get 3 out of a possible 8 points. But there are only 2 questions that he missed. He missed the multiple choice for Lost City of Z, and then he also missed the just 2-point question about Amy Adams and Big Eyes. The problem was that Brittany managed to steal both of those. Again, we're talking 2 recent movies. We're talking things that are a little bit more general recent knowledge as well, which is a key point to toss out there. Because, these were questions where, Jericho, they just fell outside of what he knew. And they fell right into what Brittany Young knew. So that meant it was a nice, easy 3-point pickup, which was key. after we, of course, talk about round 2 and get into round 3.
It seemed to me that if Brittany is just prime to just take a few months and study a couple extra things, and she's a dangerous. I think it should be a dangerous partner for someone in the team's division. Pair her up with a nice side of I don't know, maybe Jader, something like that, who's got a real well-rounded knowledge. It seems like he seems to kind of get every facet of the game. Just seems to me, pair them some as a new team, get them together. You don't want to put her on the prime time stage too early, but it seems like she could hold her own in a teams match as well. And she's coming in here just stealing it from Jericho like it's nothing. She's just kind of got it. She's got the swagger. She's got the energy that this game needs to be able to pull yourself out of moments. I think that's one thing that's key with some of these characters that come into this game, is that some are more suited to kind of talk themselves into the right moment than instead of talking themselves out. She's got the confidence. It's just soaring. So Boggs, it's 9-9 before she even plays.
Yeah, that's it. That's where it's come to. So, we watched this match together, like you said, on a watch party with the spin from the Real Boys. Shout out to them. And, we all said it straight away, like, stick on famous actors and actresses in this kind of match where you do get more general questions. Like, stick with that. Like, you would think that is a comfortable category for you, especially, you're into pop culture and things like that. So, like Jericho is. So I think it was a mistake spinning off that, hitting dramas, something quite specific. Like John said, more recent stuff. And Brittany just ate them up. The steals, the getting the 1 point and the 2 point. I was like, oh man. So it was, she showed that she's a player as well. So I think that's this where the match was won and lost on this decision there. So it was obviously unlucky. Unlucky round to spin on in terms of drama, but I think he should have stuck on. Definitely should have stuck on famous actors and actresses.
And it is Christmas Day, so I got to make a random NBA reference because there's 8 games on right now that I'm not watching. And, they say 2 things. They say you're either a real fan if you know the difference between Bojan and Bogdan. Same spelling, 2 different names. And do you know the difference in the Schmodown between Charlie Hunnam and Garrett Hudlin? I mean, come on. They're 2 dudes that look exactly the same.
Isn't Bogdan? Didn't he play for the Bulls, Chicago Bulls? Is that right?
Well, I'm talking current.
Oh, okay. But he did, right? There was a Bogdan.
Yeah. You're right.
I'll just make sure I got that reference.
Yeah, you're right. These are these are 2 guys who are they basically play the exact same position. They look exactly the same, but the way you say their names is vastly different.
No, I got it.
Yeah, it's pretty great. But yeah, to be able to pull out the Lost City of Z question, I still haven't clicked on that movie. I think it's been on Amazon Prime for like the last 8 years, and I still haven't watched it, but I know he's on the cover of it. So good, who knows? But going into Brittany spins dramas, sketchy wheel. Shame on you, wheel. You should not spin that thing that you just spun. That's bad coding. Tarantino, not so much. She was not feeling Tarantino. Number 3, spinner's choice. Way to go. Like, that's a nice way to play into your hand. She chooses Disney. Oof, these are not. I don't think these are some of the Disney questions she was quite anticipating, nor was I. I think I did pretty well in this category, but it was still really hard if you're not, I guess, tapped in, because these were some kind of deeper cuts.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely smart choice to spin away from Tarantino. I think all the same. Definitely one of those instances of, hey, sometimes dungeon players should listen to Kaiser. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I do think that this category probably played to her strengths and played to Jericho's weaknesses in such a way that it was overall a better choice. That said, yeah, brutal category. As Brittany was only able to get 2 of a possible 8 points coming out of this round, which is 1 less than Jericho was able to get. That said, when it came to steal opportunities, the 2 questions that she just missed and was not able to get to multiple choice on, there are 2 questions, both also multiple choice. It was the Saving Mr. Banks one, and then the name of the restaurant and Lady and the Tramp. Jericho was only able to steal the Saving Mr. Banks question, which to me was kind of like the flip of the Amy Adams Big Eyes question, where it's just kind of like, again, just being able to know, like, all right, what's the actor? Obviously Amy Adams in Big Eyes is more of a prominent role. But still in all, it's just one of those things where it's like that trying to just know the top few actors in a movie is kind of like the number one thing to be looking at, I think, in a lot of respects for these matches. But what was great for Brittany is that because Jericho was only able to get a 1-point steal off her and she was able to get 3 points off him, coming out of this round, it was 10-11. It was just that little bit of an edge she needed, which, again, when we talk about these, matches, oftentimes, as long as you're within 5-point range, it doesn't really matter. But boy, is it nice to have a little bit of an edge coming out of round 2 when it really starts to be an absolute gamble.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you are considered the underdog and your opponent goes first and you come out with more points than they did. It's momentum. We were looking for momentum in the first round. She found it in the second. She found steals, even though she didn't fully. I mean, she got points in his round because maybe she didn't feel too confident in the second round. It all just kind of worked together to make a really nice second round for her. And I mean, Jericho is just kind of still hanging around, though. This is the thing I'm talking about before. Very easy after some of these points is it for Jericho to just check out. And he is here. Like, he is here. He is present in this. And it's huge.
Yeah, that's why I backed him before, because I was so impressed with how he played against Smith. And, like I said, I think the steals cost him. So that's the reason why she was in front, because obviously she missed her, it was quite a hard Disney category and she missed a few. But obviously the steals kept her in front. So, yeah, I was like, that's why I was like super surprised at that. The steals kind of got the advantage. But, yeah, he didn't obviously. I think he got one multiple choice steal. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, one, yeah. So he kept him close, but he was still in behind. And shout out to Kaiser in this round, going back and forth with obviously Jericho. He did. Like, I was laughing out loud. I was like kind of fist pumping myself, for Kaiser, really, kind of going, Jericho giving him smack talk and say, who's this guy, and all that stuff. So yeah, I love that. And shout out to Kaiser.
Yeah, and so I mean, going into round 3, we get some of the like wildest pulls that we've seen all season. Kind of like we really don't see a lot of guessing, I would say, anymore. That's kind of a lost art. I mean, it used to be very Makuga-esque. Stacey Howard. I almost said Stacey Abrams. Please come on the Showdown. Absolutely fantastic. Please, Stacey Abrams, come on the Showdown. That would be live in Atlanta.
John Ossoff.
Oh my God, live in Atlanta, it would go crazy, go berserk.
All right, who believes in Medicaid for all? Let's go.
That would be great. That would be fantastic. But this is just fun. This is one of the more fun third rounds that we've watched all season. You love when a match comes down to one question. I mean, that's the best version of this game. I mean, I don't care what the score is of a match. If it comes down to the 5-pointer, I'm in. Like, I'm in. You've got me hooked. You've got the drama because you're saying there's a chance that this person's got a shot, and that's all we live for is a shot. So Chris gets remakes and reboots. I mean, just nails it. Brittany, crime, nails it. And here's where the fun begins. Chris Jericho with this horror question. Who knew this horror question?
Remind me what it is.
The answer was Jamie Kennedy, but I honestly don't remember the question.
Right. I would not have gotten it, no.
Yeah, I just would have guessed Jamie Kennedy just from the shot of like that just being the...
Oh, who's the news reporter in Spring or something?
Yes. Yeah.
Like that, yeah. I didn't write
I don't even know who that is.
He's the guy from Malibu's Most Wanted. Do you remember that movie?
Oh, Malibu's Most Wanted. Yeah.
Right. That's the point. That's why it was pretty great that he pulls it out. I think he uses two of his repeats here, and which I think he wishes he would have had him for the last one, even though I don't think he was going to pull it on the last one. But Brittany with the movie quotes, there was a little bit of controversy on the movie quotes because she didn't say National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. But yeah, okay. Is there another movie called Christmas Vacation? No, there's not. So that's that rule. That's the rule. We did get the first page of the rule book this week, by the way. The commissioner released the first page that you come to like the written agreement. So we got rules to look forward to. We'll have a whole breakdown of that, I'm sure.
By the way, I would have maybe challenged that, not
Oh,
because
really?
I agree, not because I agree, just for the chance that it could get overturned, because she didn't say the full name at the end of the day, so maybe it might have got overturned. So yeah, absolutely petty. Don't get me wrong. So probably not worth it,
I
But
don't.
I
I
would
guess
have
I would have to
maybe
go
just
back, and I think the argument that would go against it would be if they've given Animal House as an acceptable answer. If someone's just said Animal House for an answer and not National Lampoon's Animal House, I think that's where the precedent probably would have been set. Because I think it kind of goes into the same category of like IG in Harry Potter, where it's like I can just say the Sorcerer's Stone. I'm not going to sit here and write out Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone or Harry or whatever. I think so. But yeah, there's definitely, because she didn't say it, there is an argument to be made. But I think it was smart. It was going to be a little petty.
But it didn't come down to that. So yeah,
right. And then unfortunately, Jericho comes down. John, this disaster movie question. Who knew the core?
I did.
Not
Do you
me.
remember? Do you remember we spoke about it on the watch party? It's starring Hilary Swank, and they've cleverly not added her because she's the lead in the movie. So they've not added her. They've added the other cast, which is it Delroy Lynn something? I forgot his name. And
Delroy Lindo is a guy.
yes, Linda. Yes, him.
Just in the Five Bloods.
And Thomas Jane in it as well. So yeah, I do know that movie. I think I've got it on DVD somewhere. So yeah,
boy, king of the B to C tier action disaster movies.
Yeah,
but he can't pull it.
And
he can't pull it, and that's the match. Brittany Young takes the cake, 16-15. Not too bad. Not a bad little resume, but unfortunately, Jericho goes 0-2 in his first season into the Schmodown. I mean, Boggs, do you think this is gonna, make him a little more hesitant, or do you think this is gonna, throw some coal on the fire and it's gonna stoke it and he's gonna come back?
That's the question, really, at the end of it. So yeah, they got to be careful, because I think if he loses again, it might put him off, because he is an athlete, he is a winner. So 0-2, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. He's played great in both matches, I thought. So going into that, I hope he doesn't lose heart, because I think he's good, but I was trying to think who would they match him up against, because I even think who's maybe the lowest ranked singles player. Maybe Brett. Maybe
I think him and Brett, but I don't think he would mess around with Brett. I think that's I think you got lucky with Kevin Smith, that Kevin Smith was even able to record some extra stuff for that match to make, to kind of play along into it. Yeah. And I think that was a stretch to get, because that is one of the busiest people in Hollywood. I mean, he does everything from writing to directing to hosting his own podcast. So I mean, for even finding 5 minutes to do that is hard for him. But yeah, finding for Jericho, it's John. Do you have anybody? Because for me, the only people would be like Makuga is the only person that you would just want to see it live. But I don't think I want to see Jericho unless it's live.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Jericho, he's one of those players that kind of fits into that category of Schmodown people that are certainly fun to watch and are certainly, able to compete and kind of stay relatively even with their competitors. But he is ultimately one of those people that you watch more because it feels more like kind of friends hanging out and trying to just remember movies with each other, as opposed to matches that are the Collins versus Merle, who is the biggest encyclopedia. You know what I mean? So I think that's
who can turn to the page the fastest.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it is kind of thinking about all right, what players, are lower on the competitive scale, to be just completely blunt, but are also fun people, because that's the thing about Jericho. He's, like I said, not a Merle or Collins caliber player, but is someone that has been able to be competitive and is also fun. It's fun to see him bounce off of Kaiser. It's fun to see him bounce off of Christian. So, probably someone that fits that same probably style of comedy as well. I do feel like he was, trading more barbs probably with Smith and Brittany Young. And also Brittany, I think, is at a point where she can probably start looking more up and up as well. You were talking about people that she should be probably teamed up with. I was kind of thinking maybe Alonso Duralde, because I feel like that's somebody that's got a little bit more of a classic kind of knowledge, but also someone who's a kind of overall sense of humor, I think matches up more with Brittany as well. So it's, again, just trying to think of those, competitors. I don't know if Roxy can find maybe she teams Chris Jericho up with Jared from The Bachelor, and they bring the Only Stupid Answers team back, and then that's a way to get a win. But yeah, I mean, it is one of those things. So it's just trying to think back on, like, honestly, it's kind of a reflection on the Schmoedown past, where it's like, yeah, we don't have as many people that are going to be great matches for Chris Jericho because we have so many people whose whole thing now is like, no, I'm going to win. And while that's something that Chris Jericho wants, I think, he just needs to grind it out a little bit more. You know what I mean? Like, he kind of needs to do what Eric Zipper has been doing, quite frankly, for the past year, is kind of find enough people that he can kind of test his mettle with. Some who are solid players, some who are a little bit weaker, to just be able to figure out, all right, clearly what I've been doing these past 2 matches is only kind of getting me so far. What is it going to take? What do I have to do? Let me get some matches in to see what's going to take me to that next level.
Absolutely. It's
and I guess what I'm trying to say is he should fight me.
You?
Yeah, because I'm not very good, but I'm good enough.
Yeah, I'll play him. We can all play him. We'll play.
Yeah, there we go.
Like a tag team, like if there's a question you don't know, just tap out and then we'll come in and answer it. Yeah, that sounds perfect. Right. It's like
he has to fight us all stacked on top of each other in a trench coat. And we've all got little earpieces.
Sounds good.
We're all wearing Raycon earbuds. That's me trying to get us a sponsor.
Thanks, Ray J. I love that. It's like he now is like, I'm done with music. I'm pushing these earbuds. Like, I'm going on shows. I am pushing these earbuds. That is all I got.
I love to use my Raycon earbuds to get BetterHelp at BetterHelp.com/HelloFresh. Eat better feeling food.
Use promo code TUSS for 0% off your HelloFresh order.
It's such an easy coupon code. I guarantee you're not going to have any issues of crossover with that promo code.
None at all. Boggs, any final thoughts on this match before we move on to a bit of award ceremony? I didn't put my tux on, though.
No, just one last shout out to Kaiser getting the win. He's got a good relationship with Brittany as well. He, gave Jericho all he could handle. So, yeah, interesting to see where she goes. Hopefully he keeps her this year. Overall good match and kind of led us into the teams match. But, yeah, I was happy with it.
So next time on the show, we'll be breaking down the teams championship match between the Odd Couple and Shazam. It's one of my favorite matches of the year. But first, before we leave today, we're gonna fly through this. All right, we've given a lot of our thoughts this year. If you're watching, you know who we like, you know who we don't like, and probably know why we like them. There's a couple of things that we probably have to justify, maybe moment of the year, maybe upset of the year, some things we have to get to it in those discussions. But we're going to run down our ballots for the awards. We're not going to do babyface and babyface team and heel of the year, whatever. That's not really what we get into here. We kind of just
Shannon. Let's move on.
Yeah, easy wins there. And we'll start off with singles player of the year. We'll send it over to Boggs. Who you got, sir? Singles player of the year.
Can you just read out the nominations for me?
Oh, did not have those available. Thank you for throwing the fastball right at me. Was not ready for that one.
Well, now we get to do our own little competition, which is who's going to pull it up faster, me or Colin?
It's me. I got it right here.
Shoot.
You got Adam Collins, Dan Murrell, Jeff Snyder, Liz Shannon Miller, or Ethan Irwin.
Personally, I would go for Jeff. Personally. The running singles and teams he was my pick to win the tournament. I thought he'd play against Roker or Chance. But yeah, it was I loved his turnaround this season. Obviously there's another, you could easily vote for Collins or Murrell with all his defenses and stuff, but I'm going to go they're going to get hundreds and possibly thousands of votes. I want to vote for who I want to vote for, and who meant the most to me, kind of thing.
Yeah, this is who you think's going to win. This is who you think is your player of the year. No judgment.
I'll say Schneider then.
John.
Yeah, for me, it's got to be Adam Collins. Again, just looking at who did the best in singles specifically. We're talking about the 4 people who did the best in the singles tournament, and then the person who was the former champion because they just lost to the winner of that singles tournament. That'd be Adam Collins. Definitely not as electric as a personality as some of the other folks on this list. But if we're just talking pure singles performance, baby, You know, he's not so boring that I'm about to be like, he doesn't deserve this. For me, I think he's just interesting enough that when I look at the fact that he's beaten truly everyone, I'm just like, yeah, it's got to be Collins.
Yeah, for me, it's got to be Adam Collins. He literally didn't lose, so I have a really hard time picking someone or going against someone who didn't lose. Jeff's obviously my number 2. I know the road that he went on, his little revenge tour in the singles tournament was electric and one of my favorite moments of the year. But I can't take away the fact that Adam Collins literally knocked down every single pin that was put in front of him with like he might not be electric, but he sure as shit didn't break down at all. Like, you know, like that dude, like from what I said earlier, contrary to what I said, he doesn't really need anyone to pull him out of anything. Because he never gets in a ditch at all. He never needs to get towed out of a ditch. He's always on the road. He never sways. He always stays in his lane. And it's kind of like he just hasn't messed up yet. So we're all anxiously waiting to see if there's anyone who could come in here and knock him off his rocker. I'm sure there's a couple people who'd like to give it a swing. But for right now, Adam Collins, to me, pound for pound, best singles player we got playing right now and my singles player of the year.
Can I ask a question?
Yes. Ask me away.
Why? So something that John said there, which I've seen is a notion of this year. Why is it just singles play only? So like I personally, I take everything into consideration. Like you're saying, personality, crossover with the fans, entertainment value, that kind of thing, because that's the player of the year. It doesn't define wins-loss records. It doesn't say that anywhere. I've not seen a rule that says that you have to vote whoever has the most wins, that kind of thing. So,
but that's our justification for choosing.
Yeah, no, I
also, we're talking about singles player of the year, so of course
it's
we're not going to be
player of the year. It's singles player. I didn't give Jeff an award here because I might have given him an award somewhere else.
I didn't. But I'll also say again, yeah, like when we're talking, I mean, actually, no. You go ahead, Bugs. Keep talking about what you want to talk about, man. I'm not going to.
No, it's just, my only point is I don't think it's just gameplay only. That's basically my sole point.
But that's how I'm looking. Like that's that. But then that stuff that you're talking about, I kind of put into like the heel and babyface stuff, and I like to look at the game tape stuff when I'm looking at my singles players, and that's just how I've approached these awards year after year. And that's why I've usually been wrong. Because, and no offense to me or you or anyone, but like the voters have in the past aligned with you, Boggs. They go with that mindset of they take everything into account, not just the play. And I don't think they'll be wrong this year on singles players, but I totally see your argument on why Jeff to you is singles player of the year, just from where, because he's never been it before, right? Like this is kind of it was a new foray for him. It was honestly, I was kind of surprised he was on comeback player of the year, like because it kind of felt that way, at least to me, with how his resurgence. So
was he not on comeback player of the year nominations? That is kind of shocking.
I think he
honestly.
Was. I think he was.
No, he is.
Yeah,
he totally is. But I didn't pick him, so
sure. No, it's not a massive point. I'm just saying I vote that way. Like. Not just gameplay is one.
I guess I just saw your value in other places, so I also take that into consideration. But it was just in other categories, so that was just how I was looking at this one. So on to teams, your teams of the year nominees: The Odd Couple, Shazam, Final Exam, Corruption, and Founding Fathers. John, we'll pivot over to you. Who you got, bud?
Well, Boggs, interestingly enough, this is a category where I am personally not looking so much at pure game performance. But this is one where I did kind of factor a little bit more personality into play, and also the opportunities that they got and what they're able to do with them, as well as entertainment value. And I think this is kind of, again, where it gets a little bit more into subjectivity, where I was like, there was a player who had enough, or players in this case, who had enough personality going on that I didn't feel like it came down to pure game performance, because I'm, a well-documented fan of this team, and that would be Final Exam. I think that they were a good combination of good at the game, but also fun and entertaining to watch. I was telling you guys, I think a couple shows ago now, but my super dark horse pick for player of the year was Lon Harris. And also Polyama is a solid contender on his own, don't get me wrong. But that was an example of a team where it's like, all right, not only are they good, but they've also done a lot with the opportunities they've been given. And to me, I think we're just more interesting than some of the other teams this year, especially because some teams have players that I simply do not like. And some other teams that just kind of, again, it's just like very kind of hot and cold, where it's like, oh, cool, they just won the belt and they just lost the belt. And that happened enough times with a couple other teams where I was like, all right, yeah, I think for me, the team that I enjoyed watching the most this year and also had a winning record would be Final Exam.
Well, I can't argue with your reasoning. They were fantastic to watch. They were enjoyable. They had everything from, I mean, they kind of set the tone for what teams matches were, the way they were doing the final answer thing and all that kind of stuff. Kind of helped set a theme and, you know, kind of a cadence for how teams matches were approached. I think Boggs and I have the same answer. Oh, really? You don't?
No, I honestly don't really have
the odd couple.
Probably, but I honestly can't pick, because the reason for that is because the titles passed hand 4 times and they've all kind of beaten each other in a weird way. So obviously Final Fathers, Corruption, then Shazam, then Odd Couple, and then obviously the Final Exam are like the best new team that have got kind of wins here and there. So it's really hard to pick. This is probably the hardest pick for me of all the categories. Like Shazam and Odd Couple, like you can't pick between them really. Yeah, I think Corruption had the single biggest win when they beat the Final Fathers. Chance going perfect that match. So I don't know. It's such a hard pick. I mean, I'll probably go with Odd Couple because they're at the top right now. But either way, like,
and they also won the tournament. That's also my reason behind it. They won the tournament. They knocked down who was in front of them, and then they took down Shazam, who took down Final Exam. So by the laws of the transitive property, the only team that they haven't beaten so far is Corruption. So I would like, that's something I'm really looking forward to in 2021, to see if the comeback of Corruption and the Odd Couple, I would love to see that in front of, you know, at least in the studio like that, those 4 in a room together. It's gotta be, I mean, that's fire right now. And it's just waiting to happen. But Boggs, I hear you, man. It's hard this year because it's so that every one of these teams, apart from Final Exam, are champions. They're all belt holders, and they all held the belt this year at some point. So, yeah, I'm totally with you. Final Exam is the one that probably scares me the most if they stay together for long enough. That's just like, I know there's some holes that Lon has that, like, if they're filled in, it's perfect rounds galore for Final Exam. And that's very, I'm terrified of them going into 2021. So it's going to be interesting to see how Winston handles that whole situation, because I know he's got a lot of important decisions to make. On to one I think is probably an easier pick for us. IG Player of the Year. Your candidates are Chandru Dandapani, Chance Ellison, Mike Kalinowski, Brandon Hanna, and Alex Damon. Yeah, I'm just going to... Chandru. Anyone else not pick Chandru?
I probably Chandru.
Yeah.
Like, I do think, again, just looking at electricity, performance, plus wins, I do think it probably comes down between Chandru and Chance, and they were the two that had the big battle at the end of the year, and Chandru won that. So probably Chandru for me. Yeah. Also, I don't know if we've talked about this, but clearly Colin and I each have a player that we're just particularly not fond of. Is there any player, Bugs, that you feel...
Not off the top of my head. No, maybe
you're a better person than us, is what I'm hearing.
We're spiteful sons of bitches.
Who knows? I'm trying to think of a player. Is there any player that there's no player that I kind of actively don't
Can we
like.
get a graphic of just Colin and I doing like this, and then just a big like Comic Sans text that just says, "We're bastards"?
I'm sure we can do that.
Everyone knows.
The director Mike Shea can do that for us.
Blast me.
Yeah, but for Inner Geekdom, I mean, yeah, everything that you said there is correct, John. And obviously, he beat Smets. You know, he beat the chat. You know, he's the man who beat the man who beat the lady, or whatever. But yeah, he's the current titleist. But obviously, you know, Chance coming through, storming through that tournament is, you know, that's what it, for me, that's what it comes down to. Them 4 wins or them 2 wins for title matches. I mean, it's your pick really. So yeah, I'll probably say Chandru, but I mean, it's a pick 'em.
Oh, I will say, just because it does sound like we're wrapping up on this category, if you guys don't follow the Facebook group, which I only do this much, one of the things that I saw is that Christian did announce that the Yodi Award, while not going to Nerd Chronic, would be going to Kevin Smets, which I think all of us agree, yeah, great choice. Kevin Smets, we love you, buddy. We're hoping that you're doing better, especially around the holidays. There's a very cute picture that the Smets family took with Mike Kalinowski and Shannon. Yeah, good people. There's some good people that do this very silly, ultra-competitive remembering movie game. So shout outs to Kevin Smets and that Yodi Award.
Absolutely. And that when he comes back, it's on like Donkey Kong. It is on because he's watching movies. Everything tough that he's going through right now. The thing that's pulling him out of this, the thing that's keeping him strong is his family and his love of geeky cinema. And that's, Martin Scorsese. Don't
honestly a lot like Vin Diesel.
Yeah, for family. And
family and big D&D guy.
And I am Groot. Over and over again. Brings us to Star Wars, a division I think Kevin Smets would do much better in than most of us. I think he could definitely hang 10 in that. If he entered a Star Wars tournament, I would probably feel the same way I felt about Alex Damon going into Inner Geekdom, but I think I would be more right about the Smets pick because I think Smets is just like that intense of a dude. My Star Wars pick is Ace. Yeah, I think it's got to be Ace, and I think that Alex, you're fantastic. Played one match. I got a really hard time giving Player of the Year to one match, and just the grind that Ace went through to get that tournament title. I mean, it's one of the finest. And by fine, I mean fine. Like it's one of the finest tournament runs we have ever seen. Like that dude was clean like the whole way. He went stretches of like not missing questions. It's like Steph Curry's run at the free throw line. Like he's not missing shots. Like we're talking about it like 3 weeks later. We're like, is this guy like does he flinch? Because he's Ace to me also is one of my picks for comeback player of the year. I've split it between two. And it's just to me like the way he's able to come back and kind of reinvent himself as this Star Wars player after going on Jedi Council towards the end of 2019 and really embracing like his persona as a Star Wars like head on the internet. This tournament did it, y'all. Like, he showed up, and just to even show up like 4 or 5 months later and play a match against probably the greatest player who's ever played any like their division in this game, and to just hold to hold his own with him. I haven't been more. He's probably the person I'm most impressed with this season.
It's interesting too because we're getting a little bit into our nitty gritty of why we're making the choices we're making and how much it all kind of comes down to a balance. And I do think it's fun to kind of compare how we all picked Ace for Star Wars versus us all picking Chandru for Inner Geekdom, because you would think with those kind of lineups, it would make a little bit more sense where it's like, oh, if our reasoning is that Chandru should be Inner Geekdom, you would probably think we'd say Alex Damon for Star Wars. But just as far as, and I don't know if this is true of your guys' mindset, but when I was kind of thinking about this, it was kind of that question of, all right, on the Inner Geekdom side, Chance won the tournament against like some kind of newer faces to Inner Geekdom, some people that are like good, but like, again, like with Robert Parker, that was probably the biggest name besides Mike that he did up getting a win on. But Robert Parker was still kind of untested, whereas Chandru took on two of the all-time greats in Kevin Smets and then tournament winner Chance Ellison. And so that's why I was kind of thinking give it to Chandru. Meanwhile, on the Star Wars side, you have Alex Damon, who played once, beat the tournament winner, which is certainly impressive. But again, if you look at the Star Wars tournament, how electric that was, that's a word we're using a lot, and also the fact that Ace beat a bunch of people, including Ken Knapsack and Laura Kelly and Andrew DiMalanza. Like, he truly went up against the cream of the crop all year, basically, and managed to get all but one win. So that's part of it. I don't know if that's exactly what you guys thought as well, in which case, oops. But that was kind of my reasoning, just as far as trying to look at, like, all right, what do these wins and losses mean actually in context outside of just the vacuum? Boggs, did pretty much the same for you or a little different?
No, to be honest, it's not even a debate for me. It's just Ace. That's it. I mean, obviously it's not Alex's fault. He's only had one match, but yeah, I mean, of course, Ace lit up the schmodown basically. So yeah, it's definitely Ace.
Yeah.
I think my love for Alex probably would have been a bit more if he did a bit better in that IG tournament. just a little bit, like even just a round further. I think I would have just had a bit more of like push for Alex, just because it would have been a bit more prevalent. But
yeah, could have put him, honestly, if he had gotten to the finals against Chance, I think then he'd be kind of in contention for player of the year.
Oh, yeah, just in terms of points and yeah, absolutely. I mean, at least in the conversation, you got to at least put him in the conversation in terms of like unexpected. Just unexpected points. You're never going to turn down some unexpected points in this game. And Roxy had a player that was ready to play and put him in. And unfortunately, kind of got shafted in the Star Wars division, where in a normal world, he probably would have played a schmo. It probably would have been a throwdown match, a pay-per-view of him versus Ace, maybe in like July or August after the tournament. It wouldn't have been all the way to spectacular. And then you could have had this match that they're setting up right now with the ladies and Di Milanta for the winner to go up, and then that could have been a spectacular, all that stuff. So it was kind of hurt by the year. He's probably the player who's most affected by COVID, I would say. This whole situation is probably his Star Wars year. So it's not your fault that you only got to play once. And I'm sure that was not Roxy's intent when she drafted him as high as she did, because that's obviously she didn't get the playing time out of somebody that she probably could have gotten at the same portion of the draft.
Yeah, well, to be fair, COVID also kind of meant that he, an Atlanta-based player, got to spend as much time as he did in the Inner Geekdom division too. So that's, again, like, it's one of those weird kind of like, push and pulls. I will also say shafted. Come on now, Colin. That's a little bit crass, especially since we're talking about Star Wars. You shouldn't say shafted. You should say Anakin Skywalker younglinged.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Got youngling. Well, moving on to a match, to the conversation, I think would be pretty split, because this is one where it's kind of hard to go back and forth between the two. I think it's match of the year. Match of the year is one of the ones for me where I'm just, this is hard because there's so many. So we got Kevin Smith versus Chris Jericho. We got Odd Couple versus Shazam. Merle versus Bateman 2. Merle versus Bibiani versus The Kid. Corruption versus Founding Fathers. Di Milanta versus Cabrera. Di Milanta versus Scrimshaw. Odd Couple versus Final Exam. Merle Bateman 1. And Merle versus Collins. This is a lot. And they're all fantastic matches. And I can't not pick Merle versus Collins. There's just no way I can't. It's like one of the most intense things I've ever seen this season in terms of just knowledge and competitive drive and just meeting expectations. It met him and blew him out the window at the same time. John.
Yeah, I'll be honest. My personal pick for match of the year, one that I knew was not going to get picked, but was a dark horse contender for me, was Roka versus Oyama, because I thought that one was great. But my number one pick was honestly Dan Merle versus Ethan Irwin. For me, that was the match. And again, that's partially just because Ethan Irwin might be my favorite player generally, and Dan Merle is also, again, the GOAT. So that was kind of the one, especially over Merle versus Bateman too. Like, I do think that kind of like I won moment, yeah, that was cool, but I felt like the match as a whole was not necessarily as good as that moment. Definitely some solid teams matches in there. Definitely some solid Star Wars matches in there. But yeah, man, I think Merle versus Collins is probably the one. Because again, that's like, we're talking about the GOAT versus the arguable player of the year. GOAT. Yeah, baby GOAT.
It's like LeBron
I guess since he's
and
on the corruption heel side, maybe he's more like the Satan GOAT. You know what I mean?
Sure. Like,
there's the GOAT as in the greatest of all time, and then the GOAT that you like cut open its belly so that way you can summon your Dark Lord. Yeah, a good match to be sure. Again, going down to overtime, much like Merle versus Irwin. And yeah, I feel like there are some of these matches where it's like, there's some of these matches where I think they're just nominated because they have the biggest name players and not necessarily the best overall performance. Yeah, that's
so many.
I think it must be because they did want to make sure they gave their love to those Star Wars matches. And if that's the case,
Star Wars matches are usually better than the other ones. Like, that, it doesn't matter if it's the singles or Inner Geekdom. You gotta put away. I think when you're looking at these, and Boggs, I think we'd probably be on the same page here. You got to throw away your theme or your division here and just look at how the match was.
Yeah, and that's part of why I'm saying like one of those Bateman matches should be scratched off the list, if you ask me. What about you, Boggs? I did just interrupt Colin's wonderful segue. What are your thoughts right now, man?
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, to be honest, I like some matches that are not actually on that list as well. Chandru against Smets, the Corruption Founding Fathers tag match. But yeah, on the list, man, I really don't know. I mean, I think maybe because there's 10, because there's a lot of good matches this year, like a lot. So, but I don't know, for some reason, I haven't actually got a pick, but just as you guys were talking, I was getting flashes of the Bateman Morrill first match, because you had the whole Finstock exchange beef leading up to the whole, that was the end of January, right? So coming off the Morrill against Bibiani against the Kid, and then the whole internal beef that they had going into that live match, and then Morrill being behind and then pulling out the win. So maybe that one, with all things considered, but it's really hard pick. I mean, obviously the Star Wars matches up there, Demon Hunter against Ace, and against Grimshaw as well. Of course, they're up there, but I can't pick, man. There's so many great matches.
And Odd Couple versus Shazam too. I got to give that match love as well. That's a fantastic, like Spectacular was just full of it. It was full of them. Like it was everything you wanted for the most part. Where you got entertained, or I mean, I don't want to say letdowns, but like the champs won. I mean, if you can't, you're either entertained because there's an upset and a belt is passed, or it's a letdown in a sense because the champ dominates, which like is kind of hard because you also want to see that. As much as you want to see the underdog come up and rise, you also want to see champs, make their mark and really sit on why they're the best. And Alex is doing it now. Chandru's done it now. We're sitting in here and we got two champions of these geeky divisions that do not feel like players that are going to give it up. Like Chandru's not going to get worse at this game. Like he's it's just not going to happen. If he's going to get better and better and better, if you can even think of that, what a better version of Chandru looks like. But yeah, for me, match of the year, it's Morrill versus Collins. It's just too much fun. And moving on to moment of the year, which is something that is just, how do you define a moment? But we'll do our best here. The candidates are Morrill versus Collins, the post-game interview, not referencing any specific part of it, just the entire thing. Shannon drafts Dewberry. That was fun to watch, but a moment of the year, he played one match. Morrill versus Bateman, the I-1, which John, you just said, and I completely agree with you, was like, right? It was just like, it was cool. Bibiani versus Jericho, Spectacular 5. And then Smith gives Jericho Kevin Smith movies, which I guess. I think the only answer is Bibiani versus Jericho in Spectacular 5, because that to me is like a full circle.
Yeah.
And I trace a lot of like my diehard love for the Schmodown goes back to when I kind of got rejuvenated with seeing the future of what competitors could look like with Bibiani and Draco when they first played each other. So to see that come full circle to me, like I was crying. I was crying with them. I was there watching this game for years now. I was sitting there crying. And for me, it's got to be that one. Boggs, is there one of these that stuck out to you? Are you with me? The most of these are just kind of
yeah, they're all a bit like, they were good at the time, like obviously, but I wouldn't say any of them were my moments of the year. By the way, that Bibbs and Andraco moment, like earlier on in the season, our Twitter kind of handle messaged Bibbs. I think it was before maybe Roka played a Yama, around that time, or maybe a bit later. Something about because spoiler alert, it was me, and I tweeted Bibbs to say, "Oh, what was your best rivalry? Who's your best rival?" And no, it was Roka before Roka and played Irwin, and obviously Bibbs' name was getting mentioned a lot. So I purposely asked him, to I thought he was going to say Roka, and he goes, "Obviously, I've had a rivalry with Roka, but my nemesis in the Schmodown is Andraco." So and then they went a bit back and forth, and they kind of showing each other love on Twitter, and then I was like, "Oh, that came to fruition like that." So that was like a nice callback for me, but. I don't know. From my moment of the year, I told Ace last week was when Winston told Shannon, "Oh, what have we here?" That was like I lost it when I said that. But from that list, I don't know. I guess it was the Bibbs and what was the first one that you said as well in that nomination?
Merle versus Collins in the post-game interview.
Yeah, I think they're referring to Roca, the way he.
Oh,
And Dagnino.
Yes, yeah. Obviously, I like that as well. But to be honest, like I said, these I can pick 5 better moments for me personally than these. Like for example, Winston winning the Star Wars tournament with Ace, or Winston winning with Chandru, like he's crying on camera, kind of thing. So I'd pick them over this. Any of them 5, but out of them, I'd probably say Bibbs and Jericho.
How about you, John?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it also kind of comes down between Bibbiani versus Andreyko and the whole like Merle, Dagnino, Roca, hootenanny, let's call it. I do think, quite honestly, the Merle post-game interview would have hit different if Finstock Exchange did a little bit better or were a little bit more visible, because I think it kind of hits at something that I think that Christian and everybody kind of assumed would be true, which is that because all of the like legacy players were on the Finstock, that it was all just kind of zipped up and it would be like, oh, Finstock is just going to be the faction that we talk about all year. And boy, howdy, was that incorrect. So I think a lot of kind of the stuff that happened between the Finstock Exchange was very front-loaded in the earlier few months of the year when we were all still kind of going like, yeah, it's just Finstock, because people were still kind of piecing everything together. And then all kind of loaded in not even just end of the year, but the spectacular specifically. Like there was so much that they had to do with like, you know, Bateman and Riley getting split up. Like there was just a lot of like pieces that they kind of had to put in place, and that made that moment feel a little bit just like this much too scripted. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm glad that we're getting scenes back. I'm glad that we're getting scripted stuff back. That's what I sent in my application for. I'm not trying to be a player. I'm trying to be a writer. But it just was a little bit too like heavy-handed, going like, all right, this is the thing you'll be watching now. Whereas the Andreyko Bibbiani moment, again, yeah, it is something that has been with the Schmodown for years, and also something that came about naturally because these are just two dudes that like each other and like playing this game. It's sort of how like it was always fun to see like kind of the Kalinowski character crack because he just loves Rachel so gosh dang much, and seeing those two like be huge rivals in the ring, but then come out as like the bestest of buds. Like I got that same kind of energy off of Bibbiani and Andreyko, and again, like I do give the Odd Couple as much credit as I do, because I do think Andreyko is a wonderful player and also just a real neat guy. So for me, that would be that moment as well.
Yeah, and I think to go back to the Merle moment for a moment, it seems that that's not his wheelhouse. It's never been his wheelhouse. The most off base he's ever gone is when he retired after Christian beat him, and Christian didn't know that he was going to retire and literally threw Christian for a loop. And if you watch Christian's face during that, it is very much, oh shit, what just happened? I am not prepared for this, which I think was fantastic. I think that was a moment that Christian wouldn't ask back for the world, because I think it put him in a position to start making decisions on the fly that we can even see now have come to fruition. And yeah, to me, it's just, easily number 2. I totally spaced on, all that was going on. But yeah, I'm with you, John. Bit too scripted, but you can only do so much. We're trapped at home. Upset of the year. Your candidates are Perrin Nemiroff beating Mike Kalinowski, Ace beating Laura Kelly, Alex Collins beating John Roca, Chance Ellison beating Robert Parker, and Ace beating Dee Malanta. So 2 shots here for Ace. Real quick, I think Ace versus Laura Kelly for me, just based on the climate of the Schmodown at the time, where we all were, where Boggs and I felt like we were pushing a boulder up the hill by ourselves named Ace, and it felt like there was nobody else helping us to push that boulder except for Winston and Spirit. And John, yes,
He's helping.
Yeah. But
at the very least, I was providing very funny jokes, just the funniest jokes while you guys were pushing that boulder.
Correct.
I was just cracking everybody up. Everybody loved me, and they all said, "John, you're so smart and hot, and we all want to be with you, and we're all going to marry you right now." And they proposed, and
will
I said
you
yes.
accept this rose?
That's right, I did. And now I have 8 wives, 12 husbands, and 13 non-gender binary partners. And I'm very happy.
Fantastic. Well, I think every other one of these matches, to me, is like they were callable. Like a lot of people had Perry beating Mike just based off of general knowledge and Mike's general attitude going into that. I saw a lot of people online have that as an upset. I saw a lot of people having Alex Collins beating John Roca. One, because they didn't like John Roca, and two, because they've heard the same things we had heard about Alex Collins helping to train corruption and putting them in the best position to win. And a lot of us had Chance beating Robert Parker. I think that was another, like, none of these seem to be like big upsets until you get to the Ace stuff. But by the time he's playing Di Malanta, that's not an upset to me. It's kind of a waste of a slot to me, because I think the upset is what puts you in position to be great and to spur you on to greatness. Boggs, are you with me with this, or with Ace and Kelly?
First of all, excellent summary that was, Colin. So thank you for that. That was very good. I was literally going to say the same thing. This is what we do on the Ultimate Showdown show. But yeah, that was. I'd say the only thing I'd say against that is Chance against Parker. Yes, we backed him as a show, but Parker, I don't know, in the last couple of years, he was the most hyped up player that I've seen in terms of coming in. From Smets, from Kalinowski, from Christian.
From the way Kaiser drafted him.
Yeah, second round. Exactly.
He walked right up to the mic, grabs the mic, says, "Give me the spider, Robert Parker," and then walks away. We're all like, what just happened?
Exactly. Like he's the takeover kind of thing. So yeah, and then for Chance to come in and kind of, he missed quite a few questions that match, Parker did. So yeah, that was a big surprise to see. But so that was a big upset for me. But everything else you said was spot on. Of course, the winner should be, for me anyway, for Ace against Laura Kelly. Like I said, I think I said it at the time, like the poll in the Schmodown group at the time, I think we did our own. Ours was 70-30 for Laura Kelly. It was 90% for Laura Kelly that day. I'll never forget that. Like that's what
that was unreal.
I clicked.
I couldn't understand.
I clicked Ace just for the support, for just like give him a bit of support, and and obviously it was a great win. He went perfect that match, So yeah, for me it's definitely Ace against Kelly.
What about you, John?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it kind of comes down to 3 big ones. The first one, of course, as we've said now, Ace versus Laura Kelly. I do put that as the one above Di Malanta, because I feel like by the time that Ace went up against Di Malanta, we knew that these two were the true cream of the crop and that it was going to be insane. And that's exactly what we got. Whereas with Laura Kelly, it was kind of something where people were kind of still, like you were saying, undervaluing Ace. They were like, oh, Quevedo, we didn't know anything about him. Ken, oh, he's washed up. He's a freaking has-been. Now that Ace has to go up against a real star, there's definitely that energy. I also agree with Boggs that Robert Parker versus Chance Ellison is definitely one to have in that conversation as well. Because, yeah, it's like obviously looking back now, seeing that Robert just didn't get a lot of shots and didn't get the time to shine like Kevin Smets did, it is kind of a little bit easier to forget him as a player. But I do think it is important to be like, yeah, no, he was hyped up and Chance was new to the division. So there's definitely some chatter there. And I also would give that third kind of tight race spot to Perry versus Kalinowski, because I definitely thought Kalinowski was going to walk away with it just because Perry hadn't had a lot of time to shine in the Schmodown up until that point. Mike was, I think probably 2019 might have been the best year of Mike's career overall across the board. That was when that Mikey 3 belts talk was happening. So I was definitely scared for Perry. And then even Perry herself, seeing how she didn't super have confidence in herself during the match and still came out on top. That's gotta be in the talk. So to me, it comes down to those 3. Any one of them, I would get it. But yeah, I do think probably overall, just looking at the sheer momentum of everything that happened going into and coming out of the match, Ace versus Kelly.
Yep. You know what? I know I liked you guys for a reason. Moving over to entrance of the year, which I think is the showiest category we're going to discuss today, the furthest from our usual discussion. Our nominees in the category of entrance of the year. The nominees are The Flirt and Flowers, right? Just so it's just so off book. It's just
keep it going. I was enjoying that.
The Real Rejects, Bonnie Somerville. The Real Rejects again. Those 2 are versus the Pride and Cuckoo's Mess. And Shazam versus Final Exam. Boggs, over to you.
So I'm going to be honest. I don't actually remember all of these. So for the ones that
I would
do
take
remember,
the Real Rejects one is the one where he does the triple mask.
yeah, I
where
remember
he
that
pulled
one.
The 3 mask one
Yeah.
off, and then I honestly don't remember the other one.
No, I don't remember, to be honest. Do you remember?
So
John?
that one's kind of like, why are there 2? I can only remember 1.
I mean,
Yeah.
certainly I remember Flirt and Flouse because that one just happened. But oh boy, yeah. I definitely remember the Real Rejects versus Cuckoo's Mess. That's that specific match that they did, not the one against the Pride. The Pride, I think, is the one where they both came out dressed like Dan Murrell, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we could get into my thoughts later. But yeah, those are the 2. I think Barbarian Free for All is nominated, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Nope.
It was on
He
the
was
Oh, no,
nominated
it was-
to be
list.
nominated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, you know what my favorite entrance of the year is?
It's the only thing we have in common with the Barbarians.
It was Bonnie Somerville. Yeah, I was laughing out loud on that entrance.
Oh yeah,
Like,
Boggs, you were laughing out loud.
Oh yeah,
Yeah?
I mean it was,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No,
Alright,
I thought it was genuinely funny, man. Like she come in and Shannon was like disgusted, and it was like just girls clashing, and obviously I want to see Marisol play, and just like the egos going at it. It was just fun. Yeah, I did like that.
I love this. I love the Flirt and Flouse. I talked about it when we talked about it before. To me, it was just like the guy kind of pulled me out of some dark stuff at the beginning of quarantine, where I was just like, oh, here's something stupid on the internet that I, for some reason, love so much. And I'm just mad at myself that I didn't see it coming the entire time of the lead up to this match. I was like, oh, Brett's going to play Kevin Smith. This is going to be fun. Brett's just going to play Kevin Smith. And nope. It is Swedish pop superstar Flirt and Flouse. And I was thoroughly entertained. So that's my interest of the year. John?
Yeah, I mean, I talk a little bit about how I super love a lot of those kind of competitive matches that are just kind of about who knows the most, like Merle versus Irwin. But then I also talk about how much I love some of the more kind of comedic matches, the ones that are a little bit more about performance. And to me, there were few people that were as entertaining in their performances than the Real Rejects. Real Rejects versus Cuckoo's Mess, that's one of the ones where I'm like, that's actually a match I want to rewatch too. Like, that's one that I'll put on where it's like, yeah, I like the movie Trivia Schmodown, and I want to watch something kind of in the background that'll make me smile when I see it. And just the Greg Alba, John Roca beef that never was. It's only for a moment. And then again, Video Drew, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but Video Drew popping up as well, being entertaining, and also kind of getting on that road to being as dangerous of a player as she is now. Yeah, man, I thought that, again, that's one of the few entrances that we all remembered as well, to be honest, which is a big player. I do agree with Boggs that the Bonnie one was fun. And Flirt and Flouse, obviously, instantly recognizable name. But again, I think that's one of the only reasons why I remember the entrances, because it's someone named Flirt and Flouse. Not that it wasn't entertaining, to be clear, but the fact that through all this year and all the stupid, dumb, evil things that we had to put up with, the fact that we just remember Greg Alba just going like, I knew you wouldn't like that mask. I brought another one. Just a real Charlie Clips versus O'Shea moment. I loved it.
It was fantastic. And there's no short of him either. I think the one that we probably got gypped on the most would probably be some fantastic live stuff from Bibbs. I mean, that's some of my favorite stuff in the Schmodown. Like when he comes out of Mark Riley's chest is one of the wildest things this show has ever actually attempted to pull off. Does a full Alien remake on it. And every single time when he used to come out in the jumpsuit as the Beast, like, the real, I know he's still the Beast, but like, that's the Beast, and like his uncontrollable monster, like that was just so much fun. So that I'm so excited for 2021. Please, back in the studio. Let's do this thing. And I can't wait to talk studio matches with you guys. Like, how crazy is that the three of us have never discussed a studio match? Like, it's going to, yeah, I know, it's kind of crazy. It's wild. But we've made it to what I think are the four probably most, besides singles and teams, I think these are the four most important awards of the entire year. We're going to go Rookie of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, Manager of the Year, And then we're going to finish it off with our player of the year, because this is a player's game, right? We got to play the game. So first off, rookie of the year, Adam Collins, the Barbarian, Ben Goddard, Marisol McKee, and Kevin Smith. All 5. Ben, love you, but not your year. There's 4. I mean, unfortunately for these other 4 players not named Adam Collins, Boggs, you can't stop it. You can't help that you were in the way of a freight train going nonstop. Unfortunately, you're just in the wrong division this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's no debate, is there really? It's obviously Adam Collins, but I think the interesting thing is between them 4, like, who would you say is the kind of...
Let's have that conversation. Yeah.
I was just scanning through in my head. I mean, Smith was obviously a strong entrance, but obviously Goddard had a strong start. Marisol, yeah, she hasn't had as many matches as the others, but I'd probably say the Barbarian was the next best one. You know, playing in really strong across 2 divisions. You know, the horror stuff. Yeah, and he had a decent tournament run in each. So yeah, I'd probably say the Barbarian was the next best after that.
What about you, John?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Boggs. I think it's really going to be interesting to see what Barbarian specifically kind of gets up to next year, especially like if he is still with the Finstock Exchange, if he's not, see what he can do with more chances, maybe different manager, maybe different division. He tries hopping into teams. Mm-hmm. He's definitely a strong rookie. Marisol, obviously, she showed up for the matches that she was able to be a part of. Ben, he had a solid showing again across 3 different divisions. Overall, you know, pretty good. And Kevin Smith obviously has done good in 2 matches. But then you have Adam Collins. And that's just kind of a wrap.
And then there's Maud.
When you win the whole dang singles tournament, when you beat Dan Murrell, when you get to the semifinals of a teams tournament, and then are also the last one standing in any form of free-for-all, especially one that winds up getting even nicher. Adam Collins, like, even, you know, you want to argue about him being player of the year, singles player of the year. I definitely understand. But when it comes to rookie of the year, I just think it's that one, I think it's just a little bit more open and shut.
Yeah, and it seems to me that, like, it's just, this is one of the most lopsided polls you could possibly have.
Yeah. Like, and shout outs to those other rookies too. Like, you were definitely saying it, Colin, but yeah, I'll just make sure it's repeated. All 5 of them were good.
Yeah, and Marisol to me is the one that stuck out the most. I think Marisol was, I was just, and I'm a, and you can call me, you know, biased, but I'm a what have you done for me lately kind of guy. It's kind of sports. We're very, you know, we'll remember your 35-point game from last night, but not remember when you know, only scored 10 points 2 weeks ago. But, you know, she just really came alive, and it's kind of hard for me to not put her right there at number 2 with her partner in crime, Adam Collins. So those 2 for me, it's pretty easy. The corruption kind of ran away with the rookies of the year here. Shannon made excellent picks, grabbing those 2. Comeback player of the year. Let's see. We got Andres Saez Cabrera. We got Lon Harris. We got Liz Shannon Miller. We got Jeff Snyder and Perry Nemiroff. Boggs, throw it to you.
This is another tough one because they all kind of deserve it in a way. But I will say, I'm going to say Ace. I'm going to say Ace because of his heavy loss that he took in a geekdom. Him being almost laughed at for going into the Star Wars tournament. And I clearly remember people backing Quevedo as well because, first of all, how kind of bad he played in that match, and the people just didn't have the confidence in him going in. So, just for being underdog the whole way through the tournament, and obviously underdog in the final as well. Yes, so I'm going for Ace. But yeah, I can make a justification for anyone in that list. That's actually a really strong nomination list. So yeah, but I'll go for Ace. You're muted.
Oh, you're muted.
So go ahead, John.
We have to do this every week, don't we?
Well, you know what? I got so many different things going on today. I got my mom. I got everything going on today. We're sorry. So for me, it's Ace. John, go.
I mean, I was telling Colin this in our little pre-recording section, but one player who I think should have been nominated for this award and was not was Video Drill. Again, when we think about the idea of a comeback player of the year, we're talking about someone who started the year at a low place and then came back at a high place. And for me, when I think of that, I think about, Video Drew, who was kind of starting the year where everyone's conversation about her was like, oh, well, she doesn't have Tom anymore. So what's the deal? And it's why a lot of people were, and she was enjoyable, certainly, in her Cuckoo's Mess versus Real Rejects match, but a lot of people were kind of looking at her and just going like, now that she's not a part of her old team, who friggin' cares? And then you watch how she plays against Mark Riley. First of all, solid match. We talked about that. We had her on the show. We were lucky enough to be able to have Video Drew. And then especially how she did in her match with Jen Kemp, like being one of the top dogs of the dungeon. Like, for me, she would be my vote personally. But obviously I can't vote for her because she's not nominated, which is okay, I don't love that she wasn't even nominated to be nominated. Like that one I'm a little salty about. I'll be completely frank. But of the people who are nominated here, yeah, I think it's also got to be Ace. There are just enough of these players where I'm like, they didn't really start that low. You know what I mean? If you look at like what their chart up looks like, I think there's some of them where it's just kind of like, yeah, it's like maybe this much of an incline. I do feel like you can make that argument about Snyder. I think you can make that argument about Lon. I think with Perry and Liz, it is a little bit more because they were being undervalued. And we could get into a whole conversation about that, but we won't. And I'll just say, Boggs is completely right that the way that people were specifically undervaluing Ace, borderline laughing at him, and the way that nobody's doing that now, for me, it's got to be Ace. And I know you said Ace as well, Colin, but Boggs was the one making the most prescient points this time.
It's Ace bar none, and prescient? Everyone. What?
How do you say that word?
What?
Is it prescient or prescient?
Prescient.
Okay.
Yeah, the I makes an E sound.
Sounds right.
Yeah. Moving on. Manager of the year. Here's where shit gets spicy. And I was waiting to get into this, but Chandru started the fire yesterday. Mike Kalinowski stepped in that hot fire, and I think he got burned because this, to me, is not even a question. I understand there's two separate categories here, Faction of the Year and Manager of the Year. Faction of the Year is obviously corruption. We're not even going to talk about that. Faction of the Year. Par for par, best faction we have. Manager of the Year. It's Winston Marshall, folks. This is where, Boggs, I got to talk to your points that you brought up when we were talking about Singles Player of the Year. Off screen. What's he doing? How active is he on social media for his team? How active is he in the Facebook groups and everything? I separate Twitter and Facebook, but all social media. And he just plays the role of manager like he's waited to do it his entire life for a sports team. And we're seeing it before our very eyes. I made this point over and over and over again on the show that Winston is in there with those guys every single time, to the same way that Alex Collins has been talked about in corruption, but Alex Collins is not their manager. He's a player. Winston is actively in there every night with his players, week before their matches, prepping for matches with them. Like it's his job. I mean, it kind of is, but like he's doing it like he would do it for free. He's got that kind of attitude about it, where it's like if you didn't pay me, whatever it is, I would do this anyways. I would help you guys out anyways, even if I wasn't your manager. But then, Boggs, you even bring it up. He's got one of the top moments of the year with my whatever. Like he's the total package. He's playing everything. He's got different hands to play when it comes to entrances. He can do everything from the Where's Lawn segment to backing up Ace in Star Wars to crying, like being the only manager to cry on stream, like for winning a title, like to actively show emotion. Like I gotta give him credit. Like he's given his all to this game, and it seems like there's an extra step that he's proven you can take as a manager that earned my respect this year, because it's a tough call this season because Shannon's team worked their ass off, but I didn't hear a lot of because of Shannon's at the end of matches. Like if you go back and watch a lot of matches, if it's Marisol, if it's out, if it's I said Alex Collins, that is a running back in the NFL. Adam Collins is the current singles champion of the Movie Trivia Showdown. Schmo down. Got myself. But she's not the one that's being talked about at the end of match. I haven't been too much.
That's a holiday joke.
It is. And
I'm talking into Colin's microphone while I say.
Hold on. Let me turn. There you go. You want to talk to it?
Hi, yes. We're going to be talking about the managers this year. Tom Dagnino is fully on here by default.
Fully by default. And to me, it's just a different vibe. It's a totally different, like, Shannon to me has one note, and it's a really good note, and it's really in tune, but it's one note. And Winston is just, he's like an ogre. He's got layers like onions or a parfait. Boggs. I think you're with me on this, but you could definitely take a step out of line here. So I'll see if I have to correct you.
No, I mean I'm definitely voting for Winston. Yes, obviously there's an obvious argument for Shannon, even the outside chance for Roxy as well, because I particularly do really like the way she handles and manages Odd Couple. I think there is strategic evidence of that, but yes, obviously Shannon has done really good, and she continuously showed she makes the right calls at the right time. Say, towards the latter stages of the season, she has given good team talks and things like that, and as well Roxy give kind of good positive talks that kind of going into the last round. Obviously Shannon has been doing it as well. Well, yeah, definitely for me that the choice is Winston. Exactly everything what you said there, Colin. And like I said, that for me the main thing is that he started the season with one elite player in Oyama. No one else. Obviously every other kind of manager or faction in terms of the upper echelon of the league had at least two, whether it's corruption or Finstock or whatever, except for obviously Winston. For him to kind of build, everyone has got better progressively in swag. So I will say Winston for manager of the year.
Yep, John. To me, I'm honestly, I see Shannon's in a position to maybe be the Tom Dagnino of this next year, where where in terms of the manager of the year, where her players kind of do the talking with their play. But
yeah, I mean it's an interesting category, right? Like one of the things that you probably just saw me do is go like, ooh, and then quickly pull out my phone, because honestly, this manager race kind of reminds me of like, y'all remember the year of 2017 when it came to movies, and you like look at some of the top tier movies that came out that year. It was like we got Lady Bird, we got Get Out, we got Florida Project, we got Call Me by Your Name, we got we got a bunch of them. We got Logan. Like one of
John Barr, Oscar movies, a strength. Let's go.
Yeah, right. Listen, I remember movies. And then obviously, if Dagnino won, that would kind of feel like if in the previous year when Shape of Water won, where you're like, sure, okay. But yeah, this year it's like there's so many top tier contenders. I definitely love Winston Marshall. Don't get me wrong. Everything you're saying, 100% true. I also agree with Boggs that Roxy Stryer, like while Rockstars is not in the conversation for Faction of the Year, definitely Roxy is for Manager of the Year. Definitely got to give her that love. Shannon, though, it's one of those things where I know a lot of people, whenever certain competitors play heel, you see it particularly in the comment section of Brandon Hanna and now Sabrina. A lot of these people like to say, oh, you can't really be a heel unless you have the wins to back it up. Who's got the wins to back it up? Who's got the wins to be one note as a heel? That's Shannon. And to me, that's one of those things where it's like, especially if you look at the fact that like from day one, she was like, I am a villain. I am here to make fun of every fan of this show that I've just agreed to be a part of. And the fact that she not only stuck with it all year, but then unquestionably justified it as well. Like, that's one of those things, where it's tough to speculate exactly on how much every manager plays a role in every player's
Speculate
game.
responsibly, folks.
Speculate responsibly. Obviously, none of us are there in the room when it happens, especially because now we can't even be in any physical rooms with any other people. So that makes it extra difficult. So it's like one of those things where, certainly, more players are vocal about how much they love Winston when it comes to swag. But obviously, like, if you look at the moves that Shannon made, like, she picked up Adam Collins and Marisol McKee when it seemed like really no one else was even talking about him. She gave us a heck of a match in Dewberry versus Makuga. Like, that moment, she actually turned that moment into a concrete match. Mark Edward Hoyk coming out.
Hoyk.
Yes, I corrected myself correctly. That's always
Hoyk.
good.
I just had to say his name. Hoyk.
There you go. Coming in and being like the runner-up of the horror free-for-all. Like, the fact that she took an event that probably a lot of people were just kind of like, yeah, whatever on, and made it just like a stomping ground for her players.
That's true.
Like, definitely, I think a lot of people are kind of going like, oh, for sure it's going to be Corruption Faction of the Year and Winston Manager of the Year. And I'm not saying that's an incorrect assumption to have. I'm not saying that's an incorrect pick to have. For me, it is just one of those things where I'm looking at 2017 and I'm like, honestly, I don't know what to pick because I'm going to be happy with whatever wins. I do think at this point, everyone's kind of in agreement that it's going to be Winston, Shannon, or Roxy. And I can't see myself really being disappointed with any of those three picks. So that's all. I made this whole impassioned speech for Shannon just to be like, I honestly don't know. But yeah, man, like it's just too good. It's like 2017 Oscars. It's like 2019, or I guess 2017 movies and 2019 movies, or 2018 Oscars, 2020 Oscars. But yeah, like it's just too good. We've been blessed with so many good managers this year that I'm just
Tom Dagnino for once was not one of them. He's a studio guy, man. There's something to say about his presence in the studio and actually cutting a promo, like a real promo, to where he's just got this vibe that I think really plays to the studio, where looking at the dude like this the whole time, like with his Gucci backdrop behind him, and he's hulking over with the shirt off and stuff. Like, it just doesn't play on the Skype call. You look like my drunk uncle. Except he probably is my drunk uncle in some regards. But you know what I mean? Like, he's kind of got that vibe of like, it's not somebody I really want to kick it with on a Zoom call for too long. I saw a funny joke the other day on Twitter. It was like, hey, it looks like Zoom is getting rid of the limits for the holidays. And somebody said, oh, then where's my excuse to get off this fucking call? So it seems like he'd be the dude. It's like, I'm missing my excuse to get off. It seemed like that was his vibe all year. So it what a fall off, though. I don't think we've honestly given that enough like spotlight this season. Is the fall off of the Finstock exchange from the pedestal that we placed them on at the beginning of the season to where they've ended up now. You can honestly draw it all back to D. Malanta not winning that Star Wars tournament. I could draw a line from right there, and the percentage slowly drops of where they thought they were going to be as a faction and where they couldn't end up going.
It's tough, man. Like, obviously, yeah, like they needed that big kind of scripted end because otherwise it was going to be them leaving with a whimper instead of a bang. Honestly, I would push back a little bit on that idea just because I think, if I'm being completely honest, Dagnino was like, all right, I have 5 players that are singles and teams, the 2 divisions I care about. Now let me just find some other people who play in other divisions and see what happens.
But that player went to the finals.
Yeah, well, and that's why I would push back on the idea of going like when Dimalanza didn't win, that like killed the Finstock's plans or started the descent of the faction, because I think that was more of just kind of a happy accident for Dagnino, where he was more just like, yeah, I'm glad that this kid is doing as well as he's doing, because that means we are going to be even more on top when we have the 2 teams that are trading for the belt, when we have the 4 or 5 players that are trading for the singles belt. And then that didn't happen. And obviously there's so many things that we can talk about with that, things that factor in. It is true that, a lot of these legacy players are just simply not as used to digital formats as some of the younger folks are in this game. Not to be ageist, but I think there's maybe a little bit more of a correlation there, just in these select instances. But yeah, man, I think it's one of those things where it ultimately comes down to, more than anything, Dagnino just wasn't used to being contested at all. Because I think when you look at a lot of the times in which he was contested as manager, like if you look at how he was contested with Emma Fife back in the day, you could make a strong argument that Emma Fife was kind of showing him up more often than not. But it was because he also just happened to have the undisputed GOAT, Dan Murrell, behind him, that it was a lot easier for him to kind of continue to talk his talk. Whereas this year, with the way that things went as far as tournaments, with the way things went as far as actually putting hard numbers on certain things, and the fact that other managers were able to out-personality him, I think it made him kind of have to go like, oh, I also have to kind of start asking myself the questions that some of the players have had asked
You mean
themselves.
I don't just have to put this rug on my face?
Yeah, it's like, oh, I actually have to do things now. And that's kind of more the thing where it's like, I mean, not that he wasn't doing anything. I'll rephrase that. It's like he has to up his game or get left behind. And right now, he's getting a little left behind.
He did, but he put a good team together to where the point where he trusted your friend the Barbarian to go in there and be that mind for them to be punching bag is a bad word. The dude holding the punching bag, right?
Yeah.
To be Mickey, right? To be holding the bag and to be practicing with all of them. And that's something that him and Shannon give him credit for. I give both of them credit because Alex Collins is a fantastic. Obviously, now he's champion of the world.
Collins, you keep doing it.
I keep doing it, man. Alex Collins used to play for the Ravens. I am deep into football season right now, and I miss that man, and I wish we had him right now. Adam Collins is the Schmodown champion of the world, and it seems to me that you don't have a better trainer when it comes to most of these. But yeah, it goes back to me that I just love what the energy that Winston brought, the vibe that he created every time he came on screen. And you could just say that's a preference, but that's where we're at this point, right? We're picking hairs at this point. We're getting really thin because these are the top 3, top 4 teams, and then it's a drop off. So you could argue a lot of different points for each one of these players, and especially Roxy as well. What she was able to do with the odd couple this year, Alex Damon retaining the belt. She's got 2 belts at the end of this season. So, I mean, Roxy's also sitting in a very good spot where you could argue that sitting there with 2 belts is enough to be able to put yourself in the conversation, at least for manager of the year. Moving on to what I think is going to be the most electric, to continue using the word, conversation we've had all day. Player of the year. Player of the year. I have never seen, this is stacked. Jeff Snyder. Ever heard of him? Adam Collins. Ever heard of him? Dan Murrell. Chance Ellison. And Andres Cabrera. Ace Cabrera making that list gives like, that to me is like justification for picking him for Star Wars Player of the Year. Because it seems that everyone else acknowledged that he was out there. Chance. Winning that IG tournament. Winning a team's belt again. Losing it, but still going perfect in that team's match. Everyone remembers, even though he lost to Chandru, interesting picks here to be players of the year. It seems that this is this category is very deep. You got the best teams player, you got the 2 best singles players, and everyone's represented. Boggs, did you go with your heart or did you go with your brain? Because I had a hard time going with either.
Yeah, so this as well, to be honest with you, my winner is actually not on this list. My winner for Player of the Year is Chandru. And I put him down as one of my nominations. I'm not going to say who I left off because they're all legit, could win this. But I did leave one of them players off for my 5 nominations. But for me, what he's been through this year, the heel work, the gameplay, the wins, for me, he's my Player of the Year. But anyway, that's not the answer to the question. The answer is who of them 5. So it is tough though, man. It's really tough. So my personal choice is I'm going to say Chance. I'm going to say Chance for that excitement that he brought in this digital era of potentially legit winning 3 belts. That was like, I was super just kind of excited for the guy. and obviously being a friend of the show, just the overall character work, the team's situation with Mike, just playing across all three divisions. That's the most, him and Ace were the most excited I've felt all year. So yeah, I'd say them two. Obviously, shout out to Snyder though. He's had probably his best ever year. Moral, having them defense after defense. But for me, Moral would be like my least choice in this because he did come from behind a lot in a lot of these matches. It's obviously against Bateman the first time, against Ethan, and then against Bateman again. He was behind like a lot in these matches, so he wasn't at his best, even though he was defending. And obviously Collins, going on that great run. But for me, so I did actually mean to save my argument that I made at the start for this point here, for this, not the singles.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
it was just like a brain fart. But yeah, for me, I would not vote Collins for Player of the Year because there is a lack of character work there. Completely not his fault. He's a new player, but for me, that he doesn't give me that excitement, that edge of the seat stuff, that personality stuff. I haven't got that from him.
What correction doesn't do it for you?
No, or just like after the match, it's not enough for me. Not yet, anyway. Hopefully he gets better with it. I wish the guy the best, but for me, I'm going to give it a chance for my Player of the Year.
John, I think I'm anxious to hear yours. I think I knew where Boggs was going. When I looked at the list, I have no idea what you're going to pick.
I didn't know what I was going to pick until I sat and was listening to Boggs and kind of started giving myself more of a chance to ruminate on it. Like I said earlier, and again, kind of like what Boggs was talking about, there is one player I would put on this list that I mentioned, which is Lon Harris. I felt, again, just looking at the stuff that he was able to do. And again, since we're talking like Player of the Year in a more general sense, as opposed to just like singles, who was the best of this division, I do think it's fair to pull a lot more beyond just like stats. Which is part of why I would have nominated Lon. But anyhow,
good point.
I feel like. Oh, what were you saying?
Good point. I just said
Yeah. So that's part of why I was kind of like trying to look a little bit more broad. I wouldn't give it to Collins because again, I think he's probably like the biggest encyclopedia. But again, I think his character just needs like a little bit more work. I was digging a little bit more like in his team's match with Marisol, where for one of his corrections, he's just like, correction, shut up. I was like, there we go. See, that's something. That's where it breaks a little bit and we just see kind of some personality. So I'm excited to see what he does next year. But yeah, that's why I kind of section him off as singles as opposed to player. Jeff Snyder went on such a great run. And if he wasn't such a like visible child in his matches, I think I'd give it to him. But like the fact that he's just so like visibly just like a shitty film bro who thinks he's like the funniest member of his fraternity, despite looking like a stepfather at this point. Like, I just can't give it to him. Like, you know what I mean? Again, since we are talking more like general facts, the fact that he's just out here looking like he's explaining to like college girls why they didn't understand Joker well enough. Like, to me, I can't give him that love. And then Dan Murrell, he's so fascinating because again, like he was part of my favorite match of the year, Murrell versus Irwin. He was up against some of the big dogs. But I can't help but wonder if I'm just naturally going biased because, again, he's the greatest of all time. You know what I mean? As opposed to someone like Chance, who you're right, he won the Inner Geekdom Championship this year, even though he didn't win the belt. He was the team's champion for a hot second there, even though they wound up losing the belt. Obviously, he only had the one match in singles. Did he have two? Because I know he beat David. But he lost to Liz. Which, by the way, that was also a contender for upset of the year. Like, definitely,
that blows me away that wasn't on there.
Yeah. Absolutely. We didn't have a lot of chance to talk about it, but I know all three of us agree that Liz Shannon Miller is great. And it was great that she did get nominated. Like, she deserved that nomination. Yes.
I nominated her, definitely.
But yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, ooh, I don't know. Because I do think it also comes down to Murrell versus Chance for me. And I just don't know. I do think, ultimately, because it was my favorite match of the year, I would edge it to Dan Murrell. But ooh boy, like this is a tough one. I think Snyder's probably going to get it. If I had to like put money on it, I think that's the way to go, especially again when you hear the way Christian talks about Snyder. I think that's probably the likely winner. But for me personally, slightest of edges to Dan Murrell.
So to me, there's a couple of right answers, but the one that really, to me, seals the deal is Jeff Snyder. I have seen every iteration of this dude, all the way back from Box Office Breakdown to the Patriots to now Odd Couple. And I would play every other one of those players before I played this guy. This Jeff Snyder that we're watching right now, you might not agree with how he gets his results, but he gets them. And however he needs to put himself in the mindset, I know John took a lot of issue with him taking out his phone in the middle of the match. I know that was a huge faux pas to you. I didn't care. I saw it as I'm done. I'm out. It's out of my hands. The ball's in your court. And I saw it as a bit of a heel intimidation thing to where he kind of put the ball in their court and was like, I'm done. There's nothing more I can do. It's on you. I'm going to sit here and play a little brick breaker and watch the time go by. Anyone still remember brick breaker on the BlackBerry? But to me, Jeff Snyder played aside from the Adam Collins, I almost said again, the Adam Collins match in the final of the singles tournament, which was his worst showing of the year. Like, he still held his own the entire match, got to round 3 and played it out. And for him to come back, granted, it was not damn, we said too much today. An electric finish. Like, it wasn't like neck and neck. Like, at least it didn't. Right. It wasn't as dramatic as we'd have wanted it to be, where obviously you want a better matches where somebody hits their last question. The last question is a correct answer, and then Christian says, and your winner. But for them to be sitting there, it was a bit anticlimactic. But Jeff, to me, he was active in Facebook all year and probably had some of my hottest posts where he called out people in the pandemic and said, I'll cash app you $25 if you can beat me in a match. When are we doing this? And the fact that post got shut down by Christian Harloff was one of my favorite moments that didn't take place in a match all year long. Because it just screams to me that, like, this dude is he's more active in this community than he was when he was a perennial champion. He was not as into, which now I don't want to mess with him. He's finally found, he's got Jericho. He's probably got the best running mate you could ask for. But to me,
Jericho,
the singles run that he went on, and you could easily flip it, right? If Jericho gets through that singles tournament, it's easily flippable for Jericho to be player of the year. But for me, what Jeff was able to do all season long, going against the odds most of the time, it's who I was most satisfied with this season. Outside of Adam Collins, it probably would go Jeff. A very close to is Adam Collins, just because like that's a mindset. Like that's something you can't break. Like, I haven't seen somebody so unbreakable since Dan Murrell. I'm still waiting to find out where the crack is in the armor. But the second I find it, I'll let you know. But for me, I got to do Jeff, and I got to give him props because he's come a long way. I've seen where he's been, and I see where he's at now. And yeah, you might not like how he gets there, but I like how he does. I like his style. I like how he gets the job done. So, folks, we made it through the awards. We did it. God.
That's right. We just decided them right now.
That's it.
We didn't tell anyone, and that's part of why we didn't actually get nominated, because it would have been a conflict of interest.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. There was one
nominated for Best Podcast of the Year, and also be the ones who decided the Schmodown Awards, obviously. So,
also, it didn't really help that the nominations came out the day after our last show and were finished before we could have another show. So we didn't exactly have the best opportunity to come on and promote ourselves.
Truly, all love to the nominees. All absolutely well worth getting that nomination. Shout outs, respect, much love. We'll get you next time, though. Ooh, we're going to get you. We're going to run up on you 21 and just go oop, 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 pinch those little butts.
Thanks to everyone that voted as well, whoever did vote. And I was just going to say, because we know what it takes to do these shows. You know, we know you have to be hardcore fans, not just watching the matches every week, online social media stuff. You got to follow people's live streams, all that stuff. So we know them guys are doing it as well. So shout out to them. It does take a lot. We're fully aware of that. So everyone who gets nominated earns their spot.
Shout outs to everyone. And folks, that'll do it for this episode of the Ultimate Schmodown Show, your Christmas edition. We hope this found you well. We hope you and your family are safely happy this season. We know it's a different year, but we at the Ultimate Schmodown Show would just like to give everybody a big old hug. Just giving the camera a hug. You can't tell, I'm just trying to give it a hug. And we'll see you next time, where we're going to be breaking down the team's championship match between the Odd Couple and Shazam. So it's going to be a barn burner. We already know how it goes down, but that's a top 3 match for me of the year, folks. I mean, that's somewhere you just got the best of the best going at it. So I can't wait to break it down with my boys. John Barr, where can the fine folks find you?
Oh, the fine folks can absolutely find me. Oh, so fine, dude. Friggin' triple C thick fine. You can find me at John Barr Tweets on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/John Barr. I got just my name on that one. And then also look up John Barr on YouTube. I'm trying to see if I can find a copy of Adobe Premiere that'll let me edit all of my streams down so that I can actually start uploading some stuff on there. But I got a couple funny videos on there that you could go watch right now.
Well, fantastic. And over there, across the sea, is my man. He's Boggs and me. How's he doing? Where are they at? Where are you at? Where can the fine folks find you?
Catch me at John Barr Tweets on Twitter, Instagram. No, just playing.
Trade off every day. It's a joint custody.
Exactly. No, just obviously we have got a show next week as well. Obviously, this is out on Christmas Day. We're all going to drop a show on New Year's Day as well. So there's the work doesn't stop for us. Just catch us on the Pop Culture Universe show. YouTube page. We've got a lot of shows out on there, and just keep following, subscribing, all that good stuff. But thanks for once again, thanks for everyone for voting, and catch you all next week.
And thanks for nominating us. Someone had to type that in. Whoever was like, hey, those guys are cool. Thanks. We think you're pretty swell as well. And I was your host, Colin Morris. You can find me at _C Morris wherever Collins are sold. And that'll do it, folks. We'll find you next time, where we get deep into that team's championship match. So these are the Ultimate Schmodown Show boys signing off, and we'll see you next time. Happy holidays, folks. We'll see you in 2021, Mother F's. Let's go.
Yeah, that's a year.
Woo! 2020, we did it.
That was electric.